Hello, BookTube. I've got a little mail for you today. Sorry for the gash on the lip there. Believe it or not, as trivial a thing as it is when you've been shaving for 28 years, but I cut myself shaving. And you might be asking, well, how on earth could you cut yourself shaving after so long a time doing it? But keep in mind, I can't feel what I'm doing. So I don't advise you to take this little experiment, but the experiment would be, how well can you shave wearing mittens? If you're holding the razor in mittens, how good a job would you do? It takes a little practice. I'm obviously still capable of error. At least it didn't take the whole lip off. That's good. But we got some mail here. I've been neglecting the mail this week. So we have a periodical, the Times Literary Supplement, the TLS, and as you can tell by the cover, this one has a couple of articles on Kafka. There's always a risk that you run when a news periodical of any kind, a review periodical of any kind, runs an article or two on Kafka. At least one of the pieces that they run is bound to be Kafkaesque in my definition of the term. I know that Kafkaesque is a universal adjective, but my definition of Kafkaesque is the particular kind of pap that writing about him produces, that brings out in writers that write about him. I recently wrote a new Steve Reads entry on my new Steve Reads on Substack about this, which I call the Kafka desk, where you've just got a bunch of people at the Kafka desk. We need copy that is my version of Kafkaesque. This issue of the TLS has one long piece about Kafka that is a roundup where they got a bunch of different writers, historians, biographers, some of their critics, to write basically 300 words on what Kafka means to me. They're as awful as you would expect. That roundup is almost unreadable. But there's also a long review of some new Kafka-related books, including a couple that have not been translated. So that was very interesting. Worth the price for the Kafka desk. Then we have packages here. We'll just go straight through them. We'll end with a box. I don't know about the box. The box seems reused, but it also seems like it's from a publisher. So no idea what's going on there. Let's see what we have here. Oh, okay, great. Okay, great. What is the name of this series? This is from the great folks at Auden Press. Okay, this might be their Nonpareil series. Anyway, this is by Jeffrey Wolf, and it's Providence. Godin's reissuing lots of older work. There's the whole lineup there. Oh, this is the Nonpareil. We've seen a few of these on this channel. I'm so happy that they're doing this. Just wonderful. Any kind of high-profile reprint line is fine by me. Of course, this is a reprint, so it doesn't have any pub sheet or anything with it. Let's just see the letter from the editor here. The seed of Providence was lodged in Jeffrey Wolf's fertile mind after his home in Providence, Rhode Island was broken into not once but twice, each time his family slept unaware upstairs. After Providence's reputation as one of the most corrupt cities in the country was made manifest in his own home, Jeffrey grew increasingly curious. He set aside his research for a book about Melville. He began instead to poke around City Hall, famously as corrupt as the local mafia bosses. He visited the courthouse, met with lawyers, judges, cops. He rode along in patrol car. He visited prisons. His interest became obsession until he produced a novel that is both so page-turning and so gorgeously in love with language that it causes David Remnick to remark, if Ezra Pound had written a thriller, it might have been Providence. Okay, well, I'm sure I know what you mean. And I don't know that I've ever read Providence. I totally sympathize with the obsessive reaction. I have experienced break-ins. Not where I've ever been present for them, but it's a weird feeling. Have any of you ever experienced that? It's a weird feeling to know that someone was in your home, touching your stuff, wandering around in your home. That's a weird feeling. It can stick with you far more, I think, probably than it should. Let's see here. Let's do this next one. That's great. A reprint. That is wonderful. Let's see what we have next here. What is this next one? Oh, okay, great. Okay, no sheet on this again. This comes out in September. This is by Chris Heath, and it's called No Road Leading Back: An Improbable Escape from the Nazis and the Tangled Way We Tell the Story of the Holocaust. Let's see here. This book is the remarkable story of a dozen prisoners who escaped from the site where more than 70,000 Jews were shot in the Lithuanian forest of Ponar after the Nazi invasion of Eastern Europe in 1941. Anxious to hide the incriminating evidence of the murders, the SS later in the war enslaved a group of Jews to exhume every one of the bodies and incinerate them all in a month-long labor. An episode whose specifics are staggering and disturbing, even in the context of the Holocaust. From that dire circumstance emerges the improbable escape made by some of the men who dug a tunnel with bare hands and spoons while they were trapped and guarded day and night. An act not just of bravery and desperation, but of awesome imagination. Based on first-person accounts of the escapes and on each scrap of evidence that has been documented, repressed, or amplified since, this book resurrects their lives while also providing a complex, urgent analysis of why their story has rarely been told, and never accurately. Oh my. Okay, very good. All right. Fantastic. No Road Leading Back. I assume the title, I don't think I know the incident, but I assume the title is referring to the fact that those men would certainly have been killed once they were done with their labor. Right? I would assume that would be the case. Trying to hide your crimes. All right, let's see. This next one is fighting just a bit. You know what hasn't come in the mail in quite some time? Tech. I haven't got tech in the mail in quite some time. Isn't it weird? I feel an urge to have tech in the mail. Let's see. What have we got next here? Okay. All right. Why am I getting this? You are indie. You are indie published. How wonderful. Okay. This is by Rick Cochran, and it is Death at Bound Brook Pier. It's a Cape Cod mystery. And the author has written other books. He's the author of 2 Wellfleet Tales short story collections. Okay. In the 3rd novel of the Bound Brook trilogy, Rob and Rachel are together at last. However, the town is rocked by the murder of its most prominent citizen. Rob is pulled into the violent aftermath of the Sleepy Village, and the Sleepy Village finds itself the center of mafia activity. A surprise visitor from Rob's past complicates his future with Rachel, and an unlikely pair of heroes emerges. Okay. Okay, so the number one question with a thing like this is going to be, can you read it without reading the other 2? Because I don't know that I have read the other 2. The other 2 are Wellfleet Tales, Death at Bound Brook Pier. Okay, so no, Wellfleet Tales are not part of these then. So Murder at Bound Brook and Bound Brook Pond. Those are the first 2 books here where Rob and Rachel, I assume, meet and fall in love, and now they are together. And that naturally raises the question of whether or not you can read this without reading them. Rick Cochran is the author of the Bound Brook Cape Cod Mystery Series. The Bound Brook novels can be read as standalone or in sequence. Okay. Well, we'll find out, because I don't know that I've read any others. The author promises this can be read in sequence. Okay. All right, fantastic. Not only an indie book, and not only an indie murder mystery, but an indie murder mystery set on Cape Cod. How much of a bullseye is that? Fantastic. Okay, let's move on here. For those of you who maybe don't know your United States geography, Massachusetts, the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where I live, the greatest state in the Union, is a rectangle. And on the seaside, there's a fish hook that extends out into the Atlantic Ocean from the bridge all the way to Provincetown. And that fish hook is Cape Cod. So that's where this murder was really set. There are plenty of mysteries that are set there. Let's see what this next one is here from the folks at Melville House. This comes out in October, so I don't need to think about it. This is by Evan Rail, and it is called The Absinthe Forger, a true story of deception, betrayal, and the world's most dangerous spirit, which would, I guess, be absinthe in the nature in the context of this book. It would not be the Holy Spirit, which has caused the deaths of millions of people, but instead absinthe. Let's see here. Enter the secret world of collectors who are hunting down the final remaining bottles of the original pre-ban absinthe, and the unknown con man who pulled off one of the most successful drink frauds in history. It's because absinthe was banned a century ago in the United States. It's 1/10, 100th, maybe even 1,000th as dangerous as literal nonstop vaping. Literally vaping nonstop, 24 hours a day, so that, maybe not literally 24 hours a day, but so that you vape an enormous amount right before you go to bed, and then every time you even come close to the surface of awareness during the night, you just reach over and do a little more, so that it's nonstop junk in your lungs and your brain and your heart and your arteries. But let's see here. Just 2 decades ago, absinthe was still illegal in most countries, banned since 1915, due to its supposed effects on health, including hallucinations, seizures, and madness. Beloved by the poets, writers, and painters of fin de siècle Paris, the herbal spirit known as the Green Fairy survived underground for over 100 years, thanks to its obsessive fans who call themselves absinthiers. Today, absinthe is once again legal, and yet still largely covert, enjoyed in secret absinthier communities most of us will never even hear about. When a mysterious bon vivant inveigles his way into a modern absinthe demi-monde, he charms some of the world's best minds and palates into believing that he can sell them scores of precious pre-ban bottles for thousands of dollars apiece. How does he get away with it? Okay, I don't know anything about this kind of subject of spirits, that is. Would 100-year-old absinthe be good? Does it improve with age, like wine? A real-life mystery, this book pieces together the counterfeiter's subterfuge and motivation. It shows how absinthe can transform a person and even connect drinkers with a deeper, hidden sense of self. Nonsense. It's a drug addiction. It doesn't connect you with anything deeper. It's a drug addiction. And it wasn't beloved by those poets and writers. It held them in thrall. They could not do it. Just like any drug. It doesn't hold you in thrall. You don't love it. It doesn't connect you with a higher reality. It's just a chemical addiction. As he tracks down the story of the forger and the amateur detectives who catalog evidence of his crime, the author journeys across Europe, visiting the private collections of the drink's leading aficionados. He visits modern absinthe distillers, many of whom have changed in status from daring criminal bootleggers to sought-after celebrities within a generation. An off-the-wall true story, The Absinthe Forger is a compellingly bizarre crime drama that will make you never look at aromatic herbs or any drink made with them in the same way. Okay, all right. Well, this is a subject I know nothing about. It doesn't come out until mid-October, so I don't need to think about it for now. I can just pop it on the steadily growing October shelf. That's fascinating, though. I wonder if the book will indulge in as many euphemisms as the pub sheet did. I wonder if the book will be all about spiritual connection with whatnot and so. But that happens. I see it all the time. In drug addictions of all kinds, you spend a little time on Instagram to see people elevating their drug addictions. Using them for all kinds of things. Pretending that they're all kinds of things. So the hookah culture is suddenly... It's a culture, don't you understand? It's a culture. It's a cultural choice that I'm making. Or the most prevalent one by far in the fitness dude community, cigars. It's just a corrosively addictive, unbelievably monstrous drug addiction. But thanks to their two gods, the one they acknowledge and the one they don't acknowledge, the two sides of their deity, both of whom are addicted to this drug. Thanks to those two gods, the fitness bros are universally addicted to this drug. They have addicted themselves to this particular drug delivery device. 100%, all of them do. Which is why that is why they don't ever do cardio. They say that they're doing cardio, and when you watch on their Instagram reels, you will see this gigantic, hulking, muscular weightlifter saying, "Yeah, doing cardio." He's on a stationary bike, and he is plodding. He's basically weightlifting with his legs. That's not cardio. That's not cardio. Anyway, let's see what this next one is. Oh, great. Okay. Great. Okay, this is coming out. This is late, right? This comes out. Yeah, this comes out in October as well. This is Every Valley by Charles King. This is the desperate lives and troubled times that made Handel's Messiah. How incredible! How wonderful as a subject for a book. Let's see here. George Friedrich Handel's Messiah is arguably the greatest piece of participatory art ever created. Adored by millions, it is performed each year by renowned choirs and orchestras, as well as by audiences singing along with the words on their cell phones. It is amazing to sing. It's amazing to listen to, Handel's Messiah. If you've never done it at Christmas time, I imagine almost all of you have. But it's the one piece of great classical music that you can be guaranteed you can hear live in your community, because every community does it at Christmas time. But it is also wonderful to sing. I know every word. I can sing the whole thing. No one wants to hear me do it, but I love to do it. I didn't know there were groups of people singing it on their cell phones. But this work of triumphant joy was born in a wearied age. Britain in the early Enlightenment was a place of astonishing creativity, but also the seat of an empire mired in war, enslavement, and conflicts over everything from the legitimacy of government to the meaning of truth. Okay. All right. Yes, I know. All right. Fine. Who ended slavery? Anyway, against this turbulent background, prize-winning author Charles King has crafted a cinematic drama of the troubled lives that shape a masterpiece of hope. I wonder what lives we'll get. I can guess what lives we'll get. I can guess that it will be all the good people. We'll get snapshot lives of all the good people. So the oppressed people, the minorities, the marginalized people, and we won't get any biographies of all the bad people. Your great-grandparents, all the people in power, for instance, obviously. The artists, the writers, obviously, since slaves made the paper. The king, obviously. The composer, ironically enough. Obviously, we're supposed to hate them. They're bad guys. And why do we know that they're bad guys in 2024? Because of the color of their skin. Tell me if you've heard that story before. But anyway, Every Valley presents a depressive dissenter stirred to action by an ancient prophecy, an actress plagued by an abusive husband and public scorn, an Atlantic sea captain and a penniless philanthropist, and an African Muslim man held captive in the American colonies and hatching a dangerous plan for getting back home. Okay, at center stage is Handel himself. Oh, okay, interesting. Composer to kings, but at midlife, in ill health, and straining to keep an audience's attention. Set amid royal intrigue, theater scandals, and political conspiracy, this book is entertaining, inspiring, and unforgettable. Okay, well, all right. This has blurbs, advanced blurbs by Elaine Pagels and Henry Louis Gates. Neither one ever read a book, and hasn't read a book in the last 25 years without reading it with an agenda. So you cannot trust their blurbs. Their blurbs are not a question of whether or not the book is any good. They're a question of whether or not the book furthers any agenda, the agenda that they happen to be reading it with. But it also has a blurb by Stacy Schiff, who's terrific and wrote a book on Samuel Adams. So I wonder if the table of contents will identify who these people are. Maybe? No? No, not by name. And this won't have any of the information that I need to get through it to find who they are. But it doesn't matter because it's going to be interesting anyway. That's fantastic. Handel's music is great. It's not just the Messiah. He's known only for the Messiah. But I have a box. Ironically enough, I have a box of his complete works on CD that I cannot play. I have no tech that will play a CD. I have all kinds of tech all around me, but I don't have that. I don't want that either. So that box just sits here. It's the ultimate white elephant. But I did listen to those CDs when I had things that played that technology, and Handel's stuff is just great. I mean, I'm glad that he has an immortal work. I'm glad that everybody knows at least a bit of Messiah. Everybody knows the Hallelujah chorus. If they know nothing else, they know the Hallelujah chorus. But they should know there are a lot of other bits to the Messiah that are great, and also there are a lot of other bits that he did. All of his other works are great. And he had a fascinating life. I'm trying to remember the last big, lavishly detailed, popular biography of this composer, whose music everybody has heard, that I have seen in the American book market, even in the academic press market, and it's been a long time. A really long time. That's crazy. When we get 4 Eisenhower biographies a year, 6 Lincoln biographies a year, you'd think... Anyway, let's move on. Let's finish up with the box here, which I trust I will not need scissors for. Let's see what's in here. There's a box, but it's fairly light, so it might just be that it was a little book, and the box was just handy. Oh no, it's not a little book. It is a hefty book. Oh, I'm glad to have this as a finished copy. That's great. No pub sheet in it. That is weird. This is something I've talked to you about before. I've praised it. I want to praise it more. This is Nicholas Jenkins' book, The Island. In War and Belonging in Auden's England. But this is really a book about the writers, the librettists, the show writers, and especially the poets, in one long period of English history. And it's wonderfully done. Just wonderfully done. It's a great book on Auden. But it's a great book on everybody else, too. All the other names that you associate with that time period. So I don't have a sheet for this. We'll just read the dust jacket. Like we were at a bookstore together. Huh? This is the Belknap Press of Harvard University Press, but it's W.H. Auden. So this might be in your bookstore. University presses are not usually well distributed, but this is an accessible subject. From his first poems in 1922 to the publication of his landmark collection On This Island in the mid-1930s, W.H. Auden wrestled with the meaning of Englishness. His early works are prized for their psychological depth, yet Nicholas Jenkins argues that they are political poems as well, illuminating Auden's intuitions about a key aspect of modern experience, national identity. 2 historical forces in particular haunted the poet, the catastrophe of World War I and the subsequent rediscovery of England's rural landscapes by artists and intellectuals before they disappeared, before the train lines ended up everywhere. This book presents a new picture of Auden, the poet and man, as he explored a genteel, lyrical form of nationalism during these years. His poems reflect on a world in ruins while cultivating visions of England as a beautiful, if morally compromised, haven. They also reflect aspects of Auden's personal search for belonging, from his complex relationship with his father to his quest for literary mentors to his negotiation of the codes that structured gay life. Yet as Europe veered toward a second immolation, Auden began to realize that poetic myths centered on English identity held little potential. He was kind of wrong about that. He left the country in 1936 for what became an almost lifelong expatriation, convinced that his role as the voice of Englishness had become an empty one. Don't be fooled, though. Auden is the center of this book, but he's not the only artist or poet mentioned or discussed at good length. This is a smart, readable, really good book of a weird kind. It's not exactly a biography. It's not exactly a literary study of poetry. History, I guess, would come the closest, but it has such a personal focus that it's a weird kind of book, a weird admixture of different genres. So tough on its face to recommend, but I do recommend it. If you are interested in interwar English history, or in Auden, or in the arts of England, between the death of all the World War I poets and the rise of Nazi Germany, if you're interested in England between that period, this is fantastic. Just a fantastic book. Glad to have a finished copy of it. So that is our mail haul. It's our mail haul for this Friday. We have The Island in a finished copy. We have Every Valley, a study of the people all around the genesis of Handel's Messiah. That is a great idea. We have The Absinthe Forger, a man telling people, absintheurs, that he had original bottles of absinthe when he didn't. Forging that somehow. How on earth would you go about forging that? It's going to be a great story to read. I'm not going to read it now. I'm not going to read it until the autumn, but that's going to be an interesting story. Then we have Bound at Brook Pier, Death at Bound Brook Pier. I keep reading stuff wrong about this one book. I don't know why. The author's name, every book that he's ever written, the title of this book, Death at Bound Brook Pier. Not particularly good title, but still, I should be getting it right after 10 tries. I don't have any information on this, so I don't know why I got it, and I don't know when it's out. I'm assuming it's out already. But a murder mystery set on Cape Cod. I am there. My only worry is, will I be at sea? No pun intended. Will I be at sea? Will I not know what's going on because I didn't read the books before it? The book promises I don't need to. I will take it at its word and launch on it tonight. Then Chris Heath, No Road Leading Back, about one horrifying incident in the Holocaust. And finally, Providence by Jeffrey Wolfe. A reprint, right? Providence came out. When did this first come out? 1986. So a 40-year reprint of a novel. That's great. More of these. Definitely more of these. I mean, we just the other day on a Brattle Haul, I showed you Love and Friendship by Alison Lurie, her debut. Bring it back. Reprint it. Give these books a chance. That's what I want to know about these things. These books, I've mentioned this many times on this channel. These books that appear, they are the latest thing by their author. Their author's an established name in the literary landscape, so you get the latest thing. You as a critic, a reviewer, you get the latest thing, and you take it off and you read it, and then you process it and you write about it, and then it's not the latest thing anymore, and no one thinks about it, and the next latest thing comes along a year later, 2 years later, that same author comes out with another book, and you get it, and you take it off and you read it, and you write about it, and everybody else does too, and then it goes away, and what about the 27th City? What about it? What about The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen? What about it? What is it? What was it? It was a payday for the author, a mild kind. It was the book chat sensation of the moment in a mild way, and now it's gone. What about the sixth novel written by, I don't know, Alison Lurie or Alice Munro, or pick a mid-list author. What about their sixth book? It comes out, it gets some notice, it gets some attention, it's new for a while, then it's in paperback, and then in remainder, and then it's out of print, and then it's gone, and what was it? We have gone so far in the 20th century, the post-war 20th century, so this period that I'm talking about, from 1945 to 2025, that period showed the rise of a certain kind of American literary career. You could have an American literary career. And it had all sorts of Stations of the Cross. You got your Paris Review interview. You got your book noticed in the New York Times. You got maybe a think piece, maybe an appearance on Oprah or something like that for one fraction of 1%. You got mentioned in all of the trade journals. And then you either leave the field or you're on to some other book and you write some other book, and then what happens? And, having some of these things reprinted out of the blue 40 years later is great. That is fantastic because it complicates the subject for me, and I want the subject complicated for me. But anyway, that is our mail for today. That plus the latest dispatches from the Kafka desk. so I'll try not to be dilatory with the mail tomorrow. We shall see. I'll report back. Thank you, BookTube.